Sure.
Well, he does her yard, so I'm sure it's fair.
Well, you know, the time since that. Last election. Then COVID
No,
first cent.
no, she's not been on my mind. I hadn't thought I was a dog until he told me.
Wow.
Thank you for this phone.
Oh, you're very welcome. I packed it up last month, whatever night we had. Tuesday.
Well, I
was it?
appreciate that.
Made sure you got that. That's about time. I know somebody, William and Justin.
Wait, I get.
We have 3 minutes.
Here comes
There he is.
one.
Yeah.
Miss Herbie. I couldn't resist it. I couldn't resist it.
Hello.
How are y'all?
Yeah, how are you?
Oh, one of those nice Monday.
It's like gorgeous Monday.
No, it wasn't me. What about?
Well, I think you were about to say something like it depends on where you saw me.
Yeah, that's right. I need to know where I was.
Don't
Supposed
answer that.
to be.
Don't just answer that at random.
Thank you so much.
I will.
What are you doing?
I just was going.
Get halfway between me and Adam.
That's what I was going to do so I could
Take your mask off.
Yeah, I've got the worst acne you've ever.
Oh, yeah. I would think so.
Taking mine off.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
I was out of town a couple of days last week in a place where you had to wear it everywhere.
Yeah.
And like for 2 days, and it's like you took it off when you were in your room.
Wow.
Hotel type thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Makes for some long days, huh? So, are we live yet? We usually are by now.
We are live.
Okay. Oh, yes, we are. And 1 minute and counting.
It's from me, William, guess.
I watched that special on the Unabomber last week, and every time
Oh, wow.
I got
It is now 4 o'clock on September 21st, 2020. My, how time passes. This is about the most beautiful day I think I've ever seen. So happy to be here with everyone. I officially now call this meeting of the Conway City Council to order. Can you understand me okay?
A little
Thank you.
muffled.
Just a little bit. I'll just do closer to the mic. Thank you. We will first have an invocation by Josh Finkley from the Rock Church. He's not here. I'll be glad to lead us in prayer. Dear God, for all things wonderful, we thank you. For all things challenging, we trust you. We beseech your presence in our meeting. and ask that you help guide us to do those things that are pleasing in your sight and that best serve the people of Conway, South Carolina. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will go on to item 3 on the agenda, the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion? Mr. White,
May I move that we approve the agenda?
thank you, sir. Is there a second? Ms.
I
Sims,
second.
thank you. We have a properly seconded motion to approve the agenda. All in favor with a show of hands, please. And the motion carries. Let me mention, I certainly intended to do it earlier, that we have 2 members of our council who are not here this evening. One is away on an important family vacation, and the other is not feeling well. Alex Hyman is in another state with his beautiful wife, and our own Shane Hubbard is not feeling well, so we will pray for him. We do have a quorum with the other members present. Madam Clerk, have we satisfied the requirements of the Freedom of Information Act?
We have.
Thank you so much. Now going back to the agenda, is there a motion relative to the consent agenda? Ms. Sims?
Make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second? Mr. Goldfinch?
I'd like to second this motion, please.
Thank you. We have a properly seconded motion to approve the consent agenda. All in favor with a show of hands, please. And that motion also carries unanimously. Item 5 is a special presentation, or a few special presentations. Accommodations Tax Annual Report with Mr. Mungo. Is it Ray or Roy? Ren. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Mungo. We're always happy to see you. You're not going to read all that to us, are you?
Yes. Go ask any question, we'll go through every single page and we'll know all the details.
Oh, bless your heart.
We don't want to have to go through that. I'll get started. Thank you for allowing us to serve on the ATAX committee. As many areas, it's been a different approach this year. We had to do the majority of it by conference calls. Allison was a big help with us with that. She got the applications in place for us, the newspaper, the spreadsheets and stuff, and got the meeting set up for us. And so we did it by conference call. We were very fortunate that there were no outside agencies that we've ever dealt with before. So it made it a lot easier for us to do our process this year. We did 5 agencies this year. The totaling of $52,150 is what they were asking for. We did review all the applications and everything with that. They all do meet the tourism related expenditures, and I'll go ahead and get to the meat of it and make our recommendation to you. The funds available for tourism related expenditures, the fiscal year into June 30th, 2020, is $43,363.81. We recommend a disbursement of $43,000 this year to 5 separate agencies. This will allow a carryover of $363.81 to year 2021. The recommendation application of $43,000 would be as follows. Conway Chamber of Commerce would be $10,000 for advertising for the 2021 Summer Festival Riverfest. Conway Alive, $18,000 for approximately 15 events throughout the year. Rivertown Christmas 2020, and looking at a couple other items they may try to present to y'all at some point. Create Conway Incorporated, $2,000 for the indie market on Laurel. Welcome All Songwriting Contest and the Little Free Library Program. The Welcome All Market Cooperative, Conway's Farmers Market, $1,000 for their advertising. And last, the Theater Republic, $12,000 for advertising for the musical productions and comedies, youth programs that they have. We feel that they all meet the what we're looking for as far as the tourism, economic benefit throughout the area. And everybody's trying to get back to the post-pandemic timeline in 2020. They're all shooting for that. So with that, we make these recommendations to hopefully get these 60,000 visitors back into Conway in the next couple of years. With that, we make this recommendation to you, lift up any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much for
Mhm.
your work and for your presentation, Mr.
Yes,
Mungo.
ma'am.
Are there any questions or comments? I have, just go ahead, Mr. Goldfinch.
Yeah,
I'll
well-
wait.
Thank you. 13 feet, 10 feet, so I'm just gonna drop this on
There you go.
Is there, and I was just looking,
Mhm.
how does this stack up? I know that all of these are the existing recipients.
Yeah.
Or former recipients, rather. How does this compare to previous years? I was just looking at
Yeah,
trying to find that on that.
actually, we were real fortunate this year. Everybody got what they were looking for, except for Conway Alive, and y'all have an allocation for them that you already work with each year. But last year, like Chamber of Commerce were awarded $7,500. Conway Alive was $4,960. Conway Farmers Market got $1,000, and Theater Republic got $10,000. But the amount was a lot less. Last year, we were looking at 23,460, and this year we're looking at 43,363. So there's a lot more money involved with it. We've only had, I've always been doing this. We've only run into that 2 times. This is only the second time we've been able to fulfill everybody's obligation, which has been pretty good for us.
That is excellent. Go ahead, Mr. Goldfinch.
Mayor, I would move that we accept the committee's suggestions, recommendations as it relates to APEX.
Thank you. Before I ask for a second,
Hmm?
I just wanted to make a comment. I believe in saving money, and when there's money left over, a day will come when we need it. I don't know that there's any more critical time than right now
Mhm.
for these agencies to get a hold of where they are and where they're trying to return. And I'm wondering if, with such a small amount of money left over, Mr. Mungo, whether or not there might be some way to divvy that up. To
Yeah. Absolutely. We could divvy it up and
Is
give it.
that something you thought about, or how did you come up with sort of an odd number?
It just
left over?
worked. It worked out to where the Chamber of Commerce asked for $10,000. That's what we gave them.
Yes.
Create Conway was 2,000. Conway Farm Market was 1,000, and Theater Republic was 12,000. So we took what funds left available, 18,000, just to make it an even number.
I see.
But
I
the other
see.
$360, $63, we could leave 81 cent. It doesn't really matter. It's recommendation, whatever y'all want to do, you can change that.
Well, actually, I'm about to change my mind. If we've satisfied the actual requests,
Yes.
then perhaps it would be wise to leave some in the bank. That's all. I'll leave that be. There's a standing motion. Is there a second, Mr. White? We've got a properly seconded motion to accept your recommendation and move forward. Is there any further discussion? There being none, all in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so very much.
Thank y'all. You don't have to hear everything in it. Make it easy on y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item B is a discussion on professional district and home-based businesses. Ms. Hux. Hello, Ms. Hux.
Hi.
How y'all doing? All right, so this issue came about a few months ago when a resident applied for a city business license for her hair salon to be located on Lakewood Avenue. The property is zoned professional, which allows either a residential use or professional uses, including hair salons, but it currently does not allow a mix of uses on the same parcel. While the Unified Development Ordinance allows home-based businesses, which is defined as a gainful occupation conducted in an office within the premises and where services of the business that are not office-related are conducted off-premises. Additionally, there are some conditions that a home-based hair salon would not be able to meet, including requirement 5, which states that no clients or customers of such business shall be permitted to receive services at the business location. And number 6, which states that no accessory structure shall be used in conjunction with the business, and only 10% or one room of the residence shall be used in conjunction with the business. At the June 15th council meeting, council agreed that the home-based business ordinance was intended for residentially zoned neighborhoods and therefore shouldn't allow a mix of residential and commercial. However, since the professional district allows both residential and commercial uses, council suggested that the district could provide a mix of uses. The central business district, core commercial, and Waccamaw Riverfront district allow upper floor dwellings provided that they are complete and independent living facilities. And this proposed amendment would allow mixed uses on parcels zoned professional, provided that the requirements for parking, including ADA parking, landscaping, access, design standards, signage, and all other relevant building codes are met. The amendment would not exclude properties zoned professional from having home-based businesses, but would rather allow uses that would not be permitted as a home-based business on properties zoned professional if all of development requirements are met. In addition, such uses must be compliant with any state regulations that may exist. Planning Commission reviewed the proposed amendment at their July and September meetings and recommended approval of the amendment with changes. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And this is just a screen or a view of the street view of the property in question.
Thank you, Ms. Hux. Is there any discussion? Ms. Timms?
I want to talk about the parking on this particular piece of property. I know where it is, and it's all on street with the exception of a driveway that goes in apparently to the back of the house. Is that considered handicapped and all of this stuff?
They would have to provide on-site parking that is consistent with the requirements for parking based on the use. So it would be, they would have to be on-site. They would have to provide a parking space.
Taking up the front yard, so to speak. Is that what we're saying?
Or in the rear of the building, there could potentially be room to, if you go on that driveway, there potentially be room. But should the amendment pass, what the applicant would have to do, or any applicant that wanted to do a professional use on the same parcel that there's a residential use, they would have to submit a site plan to staff to show that they could accommodate the requirements, including parking and ADA parking.
Well, this particular residence building originally was part of the business that was in front of it too, so I suspect the parking lot was for both, but now it's two separate people, or would be, I suspect.
Yes, ma'am.
So additional parking is going to be required, is that?
The way that this current amendment is drafted, that is the case. Yes, ma'am. They would have to provide on-site parking.
It really goes back into a residential neighborhood. There's not any other professional or residential that I mean, anything but residential beyond that 501, highway frontage that goes in front of Main Street. So I have some reservations about it coming back into a neighborhood.
Mr. White?
Would they also have to have ADA compliance to get into the building? Would the building have to be fixed that way?
Yes, whatever portion that they would want to use as their commercial building, whether it's a separate building or an addition onto an existing residential structure, it would have to comply with all building codes, including ADA.
Mr. Goldfinch?
When would this have been zoned professional?
I honestly am not sure. It's probably been zoned that way since zoning took effect, because I can't think of any in recent memory of it being rezoned.
Right. I just can only envision if this came before us today for a rezoning, that we probably wouldn't rezone it professional because of what Ms. Timms was talking about, it being in a residential sort of R1 neighborhood. One thing, so as it sits now, zoned professional, in theory, they could just go in tomorrow, and as long as they've got a business license, they could do anything that falls. I mean, my question is, what would require them to upgrade ADA parking or entranceway or?
And just to note, the parcels that are fronting Main Street, most of them are professional. Some are neighborhood commercial, and maybe even some residential. So this is abutting a professional zoning district. And then after that, you have the R1. But if someone wanted to do just a business on this parcel, they could do that. If they wanted, as long as they met all applicable building codes, landscape requirements, they could do it. They just could not do both. They would not be able to have a home and a commercial building.
And see, I just think that they're more likely to take, I mean, if it's their home, they're more, I mean, they're going to be there. They're more likely to take care of the property, maintain the property. That doesn't bother me so much, I don't think, Mayor. I think that, I don't think, you know, again, going back to my original statement that we would rezone it today, but it is what it is. And I think that to have it owner occupied by someone living there is just going to take, I don't know. I got to think that they would put a little more into it, perhaps.
I'm just quickly going to amen what Mr. Goldfinch said. That's exactly the way I feel. From the exterior appearance and from the uses inside, I mean, the bottom line is, what difference would it really make if somebody has a bed and a kitchen, which would be the other requirements to have for it to be a residence. Mr. Emmerich is going to help us with something.
Sure. Well, the only thing, oh, that's really close. I'm not used to this, Mike. The only thing I wanted to point out was right now you can live in a professional zoning district or you can have a business in a professional zoning district. You just can't do both. And that is all you're considering today, is whether you want that to be an allowed use. It's not specific to this house. It's specific to all professional zoning districts. And right now they could open up a hair salon in there, or they could open up a doctor's office in there. They just can't live in it while they do it.
Right.
And you know, whether it's the right zoning district for that area or not, that isn't what we're talking about today or not, but I just want to make sure I cleared that up and that wasn't lost in confusion.
Sure. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Well, I think that you've helped us. And when it comes to our making a full decision, is this going to come up on is this planned for an agenda right away?
Planning Commission has already reviewed it and recommended approval, so it would just be up to council.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I don't know that there's any reason to delay making a decision. It's just not on the agenda today for an actual, it's just
Discussion.
a discussion right now. But in the meantime, if council members have any questions, we could call Ms. Hucks, we could call Mr. Emmerich. But I suppose that'll come before us pretty soon. Thank you so much. Item C is a discussion on incentive for senior living communities. Mr. Emmerich.
I know this was something that Mr. Hubbard was asked to have back on here, so you may want to table it again, but let me just introduce it again. We have a senior living community that is planned for Wild Wing subdivision. It's just beyond the Aldi area there as you enter into Wild Wing before you get into the main housing area. Zoning and everything is fine. They're actually have plans that have been submitted for review, and we're pretty close to approving it if we haven't already done so. But the developer of that project has asked that the city consider creating incentives to benefit not only himself, but benefit any other senior living communities that might be looking at our area, to help offset some of the costs that are associated with developing this project, and give them the opportunity to get to the point where they have it leased out in sufficient numbers to make it profitable for them. They figure that a 5-year time period gives them the opportunity to get enough tenants in it that it starts generating a profit. And what they're looking for is a tax rebate. So they essentially would pay their property tax to the city, and then we would rebate them a portion or all of that property tax for a period of up to 5 years. It is not something that we have in place now. It's not something that we incentivize for any housing necessarily in the city. Last time I compared it somewhat to off-campus student housing. It's very similar in that it is targeted at a specific age, although you can restrict this to age for 55 and older, where you can't restrict it to just college students when you do student housing. To give you an idea of the impact of student housing on our tax base, Monarch 544 generates about $84,000 in tax revenue to the city each year. Coastal Club generates about $160,000 in tax revenue each year. And the Bellamy apartments, which are pretty new, generate about $132,000 of taxable income for us each year. A mill, by comparison, each value of a mill is $80,000. So the Monarch 544 generates an entire mill of revenue for us by itself. This development, they're estimating it should cost around $10 million, which would put it at about $45,000 in taxable revenue per year, assuming it gets that taxable value. There's stages that the county does reassessment, so you have to kind of get to that point. But at reassessment, if it's valued at $10 million, it'd be about $45,000 per year for us. One of the concerns that I think that Mr. Hubbard had was the cost of developing a project like this in the city. So we've compared what the cost would be, the actual out-of-pocket costs that they're going to have. For the total development fees to get to the point where they've built the building and they're ready to occupy it. This does not include business license fees. It also does not include trade fees like the plumber getting a business license, the electrical getting a business license. Those fees have not yet been determined, but the actual out-of-pocket they're going to have is $308,000 and change. And that is made up building permit fees, building plan review fees, water tap, irrigation meters, utility fees, the commercial plan review fees, and then 2 impact fees on top of that as well. The tree mitigation fee can be considered an impact fee because when they clear cut the property to make room for the building, they're going to clear cut all the protected trees and they have to offset that with a mitigation fee. It could be determined to be an impact fee. And the other is capital recovery fees for the water usage. So it is determined what their equivalent use of residence is called a residential equivalency unit. And that's how you determine what the capital recovery fee is. So basically you compare the use of this development to an individual house. How many houses would it take to equal the usage on the same system? And that's how you determine our capital recovery fee. And that fee is about $115,000. So the usage of this facility will be the equivalent of about 115 homes. So that's how you get to the total amount of $308,000. Of that 308, 214,000 are impact fees. The impact fees that are paid for our water utility service help us, number one, maintain that system because once they've completed it, we have to maintain it, the fire hydrants, all that sort of thing. We have to maintain all the lines. We have to make sure that the water meters and everything are upgraded when they need to be upgraded. That's an expense to us as a city. It's an expense to our taxpayers, which is why we charge recovery fees. There's also an expense that was involved with running water to that facility in the first place, to the Wild Wing area. And we are still recuperating that expense. That's part of what water recovery, that's what capital recovery fees pay for. It also allows us to expand our system to our service district where we need to expand it to make that makes sense for public use. So I'm kind of justifying why we charge that fee in the first place, but that's what that's what those monies go to. And of course, the tree mitigation fees, those money go into our tree mitigation account, and that allows us to plant trees throughout the city with that money. It is restricted for trees only, and it's what allows us to be a Tree City USA. It's what allows us to have the trees that we have. Basically, what they've cut down will be recouped other places in the city with trees to put back in. So that's trying to explain what the fees are that are associated with this development. We have increased our capital recovery fees, our water meter fees, and our irrigation meter fees in this fiscal year to offset the cost of increasing costs and the increasing cost of development and the increase in cost on the development on our city system, police, fire, garbage, those sort of things. That is not passed on to them because they were in the review process before we increased those fees. So we took that back and we did not charge that on them. But that sort of is a recap of where we are right now on this particular development, why they're asking for an incentive. And I don't know what more I can give you as detail on the request and where we are.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive. Mr. White?
Question. The facility that's located behind Hardee's on 501, that senior
Yes.
facility, did we give them any incentives?
We did not. Now it is a nonprofit entity. It was built by a profit, but it's a nonprofit sort of setup, and they were able to get state housing money to incentivize that. There's a portion of that development that is aimed at a lower income population. So they've got age restricted and they offer some below market rate to their tenants. And that was how they were able to get that housing fund money.
But this facility has.
This is straight market rate.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Timms?
I think that I'm struggling a little bit with the idea that this is a straight senior living community. It's not a assisted living or a nursing home or anything of that nature. What makes this different than a contractor building 200 houses on his own? I mean, why would we give this one a
I don't know that I
some
can
sort
answer
of
that.
incentive and another big project that's not
I don't know that I can answer that question. It's something I'm struggling with too. And what I would suggest as an alternative, and this is what staff suggestion would be, is if we're going to incentivize this type of development because it's expensive, then we should incentivize all development that's expensive.
Yeah.
And that is hard to rationalize from being able to pay for bills from the city standpoint. We need this sort of development to help offset some of the things that are expended by our city for development and growth.
Mr. Goldfinch.
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly understand the impact fees associated with this type of development. I think one thing that I do sort of grapple with is the tree mitigation fee, because that's not a cost that we have. It's not a tangible cost, at least. And you said to get the same revenue out of this, we would have to have how many houses? I missed that.
I don't think I said that. Well,
200.
the value of a mill is $80,000 roughly for the city. And we expect this to generate about 45,000. So this is about half of the value of one mill for the city to make up our general fund budget. So
Right.
we charge 76 mills, I think we're charging right now. That might be less than that. We might have just lowered that, but 76 mills. So this generates roughly half of 1%, half of one unit of that 76 mills.
Yeah. So I don't know. I take issue. I agree with you. If it's sort of difficult to say, well, we're going to incentivize or we're going to rebate these folks, but we're not going to do this for someone else. But I just take issue with the tree mitigation fee. If you went and cleared a three acre lot, which is approximately what we're talking about here, to build your single family home, you'd pay zero. You'd pay zero. And unless you cut down a 400-year-old live oak tree, but you'd pay zero. And I don't know. That's $100,000 on top of what they're already forking out. It's expensive.
I don't know if that's right. Is tree mitigation charged on all development if you cut down a tree? It's protected. Yeah. So I think you pay it on anything. If you cut down a protected tree, you have to mitigate that tree.
That's what I'm talking about. So if I built on my 3 acre lot and I cleared the lot, I'm not paying $100,000 in mitigation fees. But it was my understanding. Well, the other thing though,
I don't think it's based
But
on
she's
the
saying they
type
do
of
pay.
development.
You would pay for residents.
Right.
on an R1 lot,
It's based on the tree.
it was my understanding that for a single family house, there's no tree mitigation fee.
Yeah, that's right. That's not true.
Well, that needs to go away too, because if that's the case, for me to build on an acre lot that my grandmother left me, because I went out there and counted, it was $15,000.
However, you can mitigate the trees. You can choose to do the fee, or you can plant trees in that way.
The one complaint we get all the time, probably the biggest, well, besides traffic and flooding, the biggest third complaint about all development is when a developer comes in and clear cuts the site. And you can develop without clear cutting a site. In this case, it's a little bit tricky because they're basically building on the entire site. So they can't work around the trees as easily as you can on another development. But that is the third biggest complaint we get about all development is they came in, they cut down all the trees. And so that's why we have the ordinance in place that protects trees in the first place. And we could change that, of course, but we're being asked in some cases to strengthen that ordinance and a lot of times rather than relax it. And I just, there's a balance that I'm not sure where we are.
And that's not before us now.
Right. That's correct.
Making
Well,
a decision
it-
about the tree mitigation is not
I
why we're
think-
here. They're asking for tax dollars just to incentivize their developing this property.
Fair point. I'm with you. And I think we're all on the same page. I do think this needs to come back to us. I do think that this is part of a broader discussion as it relates to, because let me go back and use my same example. I go and develop my home place, my 3-acre lot, residential. The city's not going to require me to put in retention ponds. And so if I'm forced to, like in this scenario, put in retention ponds, you're forcing me to cut down protected trees to make room for the retention ponds. That leaves me with little choice in some situations, not all. And so I agree with you, Mayor, but I do think this needs to be part of a broader discussion as it relates to, because it adds up. It's expensive, and I want these places
And
to
I'm
come
not
here.
disagreeing with
Yep.
you. I'm just saying that that's not the issue that's before us now. And we can bring that back later.
I'll hold my discussion.
I'm sorry? Now I just wanted to say that, this is a for-profit developer. They could just choose not to develop it. Mr. Hubbard's point was that there's a great need for this kind of housing. Well, people who are 55 years old can live anywhere. They don't require anything that anybody else doesn't require. There might be more cost to going to a place that provides them the luxury of being around other almost senior people. And unless there is a under market rate rental or lease situation for the people who come in there to live, I don't know that there's any precedent set that I've been able to find where we or anybody else has given that kind of opportunity. We're just talking about tax dollars.
Now, Mayor, I will
I don't
say
see that
this,
happening.
if I can.
Sure, please.
Although I don't support this position, you could make a very valid argument that if you're going to develop something that is going to cost $10 million or more, that giving an offset for the first 5 years of taxes will eventually benefit the city greatly. It will encourage large scale development, which in 5 years will have a revenue windfall for the city. I don't think we should do it, but there is an argument to be made that does benefit the city greatly.
Right. But
So I just want to make sure I said it.
But that same argument could be made by a grand
You can make
group
it for many things.
group of developers and group of developments.
Absolutely.
This one is not isolated.
Correct.
Anybody else before we close this one? All right, so.
Thank you very
let's
much.
move- Thank you. And we are now at the point that we'll hear public input. Item 6. Madam Clerk, have you received any public input by phone or electronic mail or the postal service that you would like to deliver at this time?
We have none.
Okay, thank you. And I think maybe Ms. Woods is checking to see if there's anybody present. Thank you so much. Is there a motion to close public input, Mr. White?
May I move that we close public input?
Mr. Jordan?
Second.
We have a properly seconded motion to close public input. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Item 7, first reading of ordinance ZA 2020-1005A to annex 2 lots located at the corner of Highway 905 and Starview Road and rezone from Horry County Residential, SF20, to City of Conway Low Density Residential R1. Ms. Hyman.
Yes, this is a request for 2 lots. You can see on the map here. That's right on the edge of the city limits, the corner of Highway 905 and Starview Road. This is in order to, the developer would like to build 2 homes here. But this is one that staff actually recommends the denial of the annexation. And that is because Starview Road is an unimproved county road. And not only that, I spoke to Reggie and he's concerned about the garbage trucks not having a place to turn around. So staff's recommendation is to deny the annexation, however, require restrictive covenants if annexation is required in the future.
And if there is difficulty maneuvering garbage trucks, I believe that would be the same for fire trucks.
Exactly. I sent it to all department heads and the unanimous recommendation was denial.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goldfinch.
Where is Star Road?
Starview.
Star, yes.
Yeah, if it's kind of across the street from, you know where John Doctor is? It's to the right. So it's past that Langston Heights subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor, I would move that we deny annexation.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Timms?
I second the motion.
We have properly seconded motion to deny this request for annexation. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor with a show of hands. And motion carries unanimously.
And this is just a photo so you can get an idea of what the road looks like.
Good.
Thank you.
Oh, my, yeah. It is terribly unimproved. Thank you so much. Item 8, items for consideration, expansion of the Conway Critter Program. Ms. Timms.
We're bringing this back to council today. And just to recap briefly about the history of this project, this is a completion of an existing project that we've had in the city since 2016. And at that time, we entered into a partnership with Coastal Carolina to provide public art for downtown Conway. And their art and sculpture department created 8 bronze local animals for us. We named them the Conway Critters, and they were placed in strategic locations to welcome both locals and visitors, especially children, to our community. And this project mimicked the MISO main project in Greenville, South Carolina, slightly. And they have a storybook, which all of you have a copy, and a coloring book, which the storybook was our first effort to do any kind of experiment in diversity for the city of Conway. And the coloring book was a project that we had to put these Conway Critters booklet into the hands of all the school children that were visiting City Hall. Now that has not been as popular this year because of people not touring City Hall, but hopefully that will pick back up in the future. Originally, we requested Coastal create 12 sculptures for us, but they didn't have the number of students that would enable them to do that particular year. So the art teacher asked that they do 8 for us in 2017 and the others at a later time. Well, those 8 critters cost us $5,000, which is pretty cheap if you know what bronze animals cost in reality. It's now time to request the remainder of these sculptures so that this project can be completed. I feel like that it's important for us to finish it while Coastal's in the frame of mind that they might help us with it, because we could not do this at this cost without them. The committee, which consists of the mayor, Debbie Smith, and myself, met last week, and we would like to ask for 5 additional critters. 1 to be redone. The owl is one that did not please any of us very much, and so we'd like to have him redone. And 4 new critters to be established. I'm asking council to accept this proposal so that we can move forward and complete this project. The total cost should be considerably less than it was originally. I'm estimating less than $8,000. They did 8 for $5,000, but I don't know what the cost increases may have been in the subsequent years. But while we have the people on hand to do this, I would like to present it to Coastal with the blessing of council to go forward with this and see if we can't get it completed. We would not have to do any new additions to the booklet unless we chose to do so. The coloring book we created with the idea of being able to insert pages, so that's a very easy one to do. The booklet was a story, so it's a little harder to weave into it, but not impossible perhaps. The creating of the columns that house the critter and the other miscellaneous things that I don't probably know what they are, might have been covered in the project as well. So this is what we're presenting in front of you today, hopefully to get this finished up in the year 2020. I'd like to have something positive come out of this year. And they will not, Coastal cannot possibly do this ahead of 18 months. So we've got some time on this to rework it and decide what animals we really want, things of this sort.
Thank you, Ms. Timms. Is there, Mr. Goldfinch?
Ms. Timms, is this something, would this be budgeted in next, where's the funding mechanism for this? something we've got
It
laid
would not
out?
be
or
paid for until
Okay.
2021, so I guess it would
That's
be,
just something that we could
Yeah.
sort of,
I don't think we're asking for money right now
No.
as much as approval. Coastal apparently has to put things in their programming way ahead of when they actually occur with the students. So they need to know this year that we want them to start on this next year. And that's, I need a commitment to them rather than a commitment of money.
I'll support it.
Anybody else want to comment, or you want to make that a motion?
Sure.
Or,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay,
So Mayor, I would move that we continue the expansion of the Conway Critter Program as outlined by Ms. Timms.
thank you, sir. Mr. Jordan,
I will second Mr. Goldfinch.
we have a properly seconded motion to approve expansion of the existing Conway Critters program. Mr. White,
Is this total $10,000 what you requested?
Well, I think the 10, I don't know what you're looking at.
On the screen. It says.
Well, I originally had another one. We weren't quite sure before we met how many we were gonna put in. I don't know. I don't really see it costing more than 7 or 8, but I think we'd be
I just
safe.
wanted
And
to-
like I say, I'm not asking for a monetary amount right this minute, but it would be very limited. They've been kind to us to do them just for their cost.
anybody else? Mr. Goldfinch, yes, please.
And I know we're talking about 5, but, while you were reading, I was sort of reading along, but then I was looking through the book too, so I may have missed it. But, so we want to redo the owl. So,
He doesn't look much like an owl.
okay, so you're still going to have an owl.
We're still gonna have the owl. He's necessary for the book. He's our final one in the story. And then we'll add 4 more critters, but those will be.
Have y'all given that thought? Do we know what
Well,
the
we've
critter?
talked generally, but we'll bring that back to you as to what.
What's
All
the
right.
question,
Well,
Mr. Goldfinch?
I just was curious as to what critters.
They
Oh.
told us they will do anything except a chicken. I think
What about a
they're-
gamecock?
No, they're worn out with gamecocks.
Because
All
of
right,
the
well,
chickens.
Mayor, my motion's contingent on the fact that Ms. Timms at least has to listen to my suggestions once as it relates to the critters that we're going to do. So I amend my motion to include that. Mr. White, Justin,
If it's a Gamecock, you know I got you right.
there you go.
All right, very good. Is there any more discussion? There being none, I'll call a vote. All in favor of approving the reestablishment and completion of the Conway Critters program with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Ms. Timms. We will now entertain the city administrator, who will give us his semi-monthly report.
I'm gonna remove it this time. We had some weather delays last week on the 4th Avenue utility project, as you might have noticed. And resurfacing is not only tied to the weather, but it's also tied up with SCDOT permitting. We started the project, we installed cameras on the intersection to control the light function. When we were initially doing that, that was to be a permanent fixture to continue after the road was completed. SCDOT is now demanding that we put the traffic loops back in to control the timing. And we're held up a little bit on the resurfacing for that to be worked out. That's the kink that we weren't expecting to have to work out. So we are. Another SCDOT project is phase 2 of the Main Street Bridge overhaul. And I'm going to read you an email from SCDOT on this project. This is from Stacy Johnson at SCDOT. Hi, Adam. I wanted to go ahead and provide you with the details for the work on the Main Street Bridge. This work will consist of some minor structural steel repairs of the girders, some spalling repair on the concrete diaphragms, replacing some of the corroded anchor bolts, cleaning and repainting areas of the girders impacted by repairs. All of this work will take place underneath the bridge, and there shouldn't be any closures on the top of the bridge. We are estimating that work over 2nd Avenue will last no longer than 30 days. So the detour for 2nd Avenue will only be up there for that time period. We estimate that the total work will not take any longer than 95 days. So hopefully sooner if they can get good weather. The painting is temperature and humidity sensitive. They're targeting a starting date in January of 2021. with a let date, hopefully beginning in February or March. So all of you can expect some work on the Main Street Bridge, hopefully with no closures, but expect some impact on traffic under the bridge and some impact on being able to traverse underneath the bridge for a couple months as they do this work. 2 weeks ago, we started distributing recycling carts that we obtained with a DHEC grant. Of the 500 carts, we've delivered nearly half of those in the 2-week period from the last council meeting to tonight. So we still have some left, but they are going fast. So if you did not get yours, or you need to get one, or know your neighbors or somebody needs one, please contact either City Hall or the finance department to arrange for your pickup of the recycling cart. At the last meeting, I told you that the swamps and rivers were low. It was a good thing because we got socked by the remainder of Hurricane Sally last week. The river is in flood stage currently, but it's receding fast, and it did not jump the banks at the marina, which is lucky. You can see how close it is. This was this morning. We had a lot of concern about flooding last week. I can tell you that every street in the city was flooded. So it was not an area. It was not a storm drain being clogged. It was every street not being able to handle the amount of water that we got in a short amount of time. We had something like 5 inches of rain in less than a 3-hour period. And that is not something that any stormwater system can manage. The good news is very quickly it was out of people's yards and out of the streets, and we were able to reopen. Even Greer Swamp was open the next day. So we've made a lot of strides in our flood prevention, but nothing we can do can address what we got last week. And it was a hurricane. So it wasn't a hurricane when it hit us, but it was a hurricane when it came ashore. We've talked a little bit about the trash compactor site on Laurel Street. It's coming along nicely, and it's hard to see greatly from this picture, but you can see that it is a substantial project with some very pretty brick. We're making good progress on it. I know the compactor is ready to be delivered, so they're chomping at the bit to get it done, but we hope to have those pillars done. They should be done today. We should be able to fill up all of them need to be filled with concrete once completed to hold everything in place. It's part of the engineer drawings. Then we'll begin the walls. And once the walls are complete, we'll have electricity in there too. There'll be nice lights on all the columns. It'll be very pretty. We're looking forward to that project being completed. The mayor requested that 1732 be added to the sign at Collins Park. If the weather holds for this week as it's forecasted, it should be there by the end of the week. It was wet this morning when they went out and checked, and they got to wait for the brick to dry out for the paint to adhere. So hopefully it'll be dry throughout the week. Coastal Carolina is a perfect 2-0 after upsetting Kansas 2 weeks ago and really stomping on Campbell last Friday. They're off this week, but I wanted to let you know that Conway High School plays this Friday as their kickoff. So make plans to be at the high school this Friday night. And I'm going to yield the rest of my time for reports from first Robert Cooper, our chief building official, and for then Dale Long, our chief of police.
Thank you.
Unless you have any questions, I'm sorry, I ran away. I do, I have one there.
Please.
Can I answer? Yeah, sure. It was just a rumor that Mr. Goodrich assured us that the compactor was going to be so clean that he was going to move his office down there.
That is not a rumor. That was from his mouth. He said he's going to move his office in there and would assure us it would not smell.
Wow. How'd you hear that? You can tell me later. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I don't know in which order you're coming. Mr. Cooper, please. How are you?
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Just an update from the building department on from January 1st until today, the building department has issued 1,052 permits and performed 3,997 inspections.
Since January?
I'm sorry.
Did you say since January?
Yes, ma'am. Of that, there's been 159 new single-family dwellings and 8 new commercial buildings. That's 96 more than last year from the same amount of time. The facilities maintenance, we have remodeled the human resources building, built the sign at Collins Park, remodeled portions of City Hall, built the observation deck at the marina, installed a new greenhouse at beautification, and built a new office and sanitation And we're currently building the trash compactor and plans for a building at the rec department.
Oh,
Have any questions?
that's who we have working for the city of Conway.
Robert, can you also tell us how many inspectors you have right now?
We have one inspector. Actually doing building inspections. We have two, but Jim Hill has, he had some problems with his spine, and he's been out for about 3 weeks. He had 2 back surgeries, but he's not able to walk really well right now, and not sure when he'll be back.
So what are we gonna do about that?
We'll be discussing it at an upcoming meeting.
Awesome, yeah. Yeah, assuming the best with Jim, and we certainly will pray for him. It sounds like we're getting close to a place where 2 people full-time, these inspections require time to get them right.
To do them right, they do.
We rely on them being done correctly. If the numbers require it, then we're just going to have to make some adjustments. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interfere with
No,
your
you're fine.
presentation. That just caught me. Mr. Goldfinch, with your hand up.
Robert, how many people do y'all have in the building right now?
We have me, yes, 12.
12?
Yeah,
How many back?
1. It's pretty tight. It's pretty tight in there.
It's a tree on the side also.
Robert, how many of those 12 are women?
I'm sorry.
How many of those 12 are women?
Most.
You didn't worry about it.
Larry, that's a big X on the wall.
It's pretty tight in there
Oh, yeah.
between planning and building.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, my. And we needed to know that, too.
Yeah, it is. We need a little more room.
Well, I offered prayer for Jim Hill. I'll pray for that entire department
I'm hoping he'll
until
be back soon.
a change comes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ask one more question.
please.
So we fill out and down to 1, is someone else filling in, or what's the backlog on?
Well, being a building inspector, it depends on the day. We work how they work. So if it rains today, we know our building inspections will be slower tomorrow. But on those days, we're okay with 1. And then when the weather's nice, we may have, sometimes I pull the planner viewer out. Sometimes I help. It just depends. The problem is you end up with doing a rough-in on somebody's house or a house they're selling. When that inspection take you 45 minutes to an hour to do it, you end up doing it in 30. Because
Exactly.
you have so much to do. And
And
that's
we
where the
can't-
problem comes in.
We can't do that.
Pushing so hard to get so many out.
Do we get complaints from
No, we
our
usually,
timing?
no, not really.
We
No,
just
usually
do it a
pretty
lot
good job.
faster.
We just have to do it a lot faster.
Yeah.
And for the most part, we do pretty good.
Yeah, I was
Ms.
just
Towns.
gonna say, I feel like that too, with the building problems that people are having in general, we don't want to hold anybody up either. So if we really need to beef it up, we probably should.
No, like this month, so far, I think we've got 17 houses that we've actually issued the permit, and we probably have 30 or 40 sitting waiting to go out. Building's been pretty, it's been
Robust.
pretty steady,
Yeah.
especially with even during the virus, it was pretty steady.
Because those things can keep going,
Yeah, they never slowed.
which is good for us.
It is.
Eventually, we just need to be prepared for it.
Yes, ma'am.
The thing that concerns me the most is turning what is usually an effective and efficient study of where you are on a house and how well you're doing. It takes an hour, and condensing that to 30 minutes. Something has to get missed. You can't do the same.
And it's the live,
thing.
an inspector, one day you may have 15 inspections, and then the next day you have 30, and then we fill in the time. A lot of times if we have 3 or 4, I'll send them to work with Daryl or maybe help Greg or whatever, or help in the office. It just depends. But then the next day they have 20 or 30 again.
So you've got a great benefit in having people who are dually or triply trained. They understand how to do more than one job.
Yes, ma'am. I hire them intentionally that way,
Yes.
so we can move them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Anybody else? Well, we certainly thank you for letting us know. I mean, I'm surprised at the numbers.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am. It's pretty busy.
Awesome. You just keep it going.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Robert Cooper. Chief Dale Long.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Just a little bit of update about our Conway Police Department. We are getting ready to launch another hiring initiative, I believe October 1st. We're looking for some Class 1 and Class 3 officers. We have 3 that are in training now. Again, the process just takes quite a bit of time. We have those 3 that have to do a 4-week training block here. They just finished week 1 today and all scored above 90% on their test. They're doing all of their proficiencies at a very, very high level. So we really like this pool we've got and hope to be able to hire several more as soon as we reopen. Right now we are 2 down as far as what our regular deployment would be, and the rest will be to fill some of the new spots that we were granted, as well as the 2 grant positions that were sent to us through the BJA grant that we received. Just a few things that I pulled down just off of our Facebook over the past about 5 or 6 weeks. An arson arrest last week, a vulnerable adult case that we made an arrest on the week before. We made an arrest out near Coastal Carolina, got almost 10 pounds of marijuana in some of that off-campus housing there. Got a stolen gun back from somebody. Another wanted subject that was wanted for pointing and presenting a firearm, and several other crimes. Got a stolen gun off of him when we arrested him. Heroin arrest off of 2nd Avenue. Just several arrests that we made recently that were, just very good. A lot of drugs that are coming off the streets. We probably in the last 6 weeks or so also seized about $10,000 in cash. 1 vehicle that was related to and affiliated as a nexus to the drugs. My number one thing is I like to hear that we're getting guns off the street, and we are consistently making gun arrests as well. It started back when things started to go into the distancing. We saw in April, our calls for service were down about 1/3. And I believe that everybody would agree that traffic is now back. That it's back with a vengeance. People are out traveling and out and about like they used to be. So our traffic related incidents, collisions and things like that are back up to normal numbers. Our calls for service last month were just a couple of percentage points behind where they were last year at this time. So the uptick has started to come back up as we kind of had that slow down, shut down, distancing, and things were a lot slower even for us at times because we were intentionally trying to avoid some of the proactive things because we just were trying to avoid contact with people. But it's returning. We're seeing a few overdoses are starting to come back around, unfortunately. We're trying to do a little bit of mapping now with our GIS department so that we can be a little bit more predictive about where we need to deploy. We are doing a little bit of investigating about a possible nuisance complaint on one place that seems to be a little bit too prevalent as far as some of the overdoses goes. Other issues that we're dealing with, vehicles are just extremely difficult to come by right now. And it's just simply because of the shutdown. All of the 3 major manufacturers just aren't making anything. Ammunition, trying to find ammunition just to keep our normal training supply that we cycle out every year is extremely difficult to find. Just some of the things that have been a little bit easier in the past, this year just a little bit more challenging. But we're making it. And I like the group that we've got. We've got a very productive group of officers. Our young officers that are out there are so eager to learn. We've had a couple of opportunities for people to reach up and maybe take a job as a school resource officer, and they're declining. They're like, I don't know enough yet as a patrol officer. I think I need to be out here a little bit longer. I want to see more and do more. And that is just again, an attribute that they have that they really want to be better prepared. Because a lot of times, as soon as you get the first opportunity to get off of that rotation, to get off those midnight shifts and get to something that's 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, people are eager to do it. But this group we got right now, they're like, we don't feel like we're ready, and we want to do better than what we would do if we were forced into that position. And that is a really good attribute that they have there. So again, things are going well. Again, I like where we're at position-wise. If we get some of the people that I have talked to that are looking to apply this go round, we're going to have another very good, high-quality group of people, including probably a couple of certified officers, which are always real easy for us because as soon as they start the little short FTO program, most of it is just learning the city and they're ready to go. And then last is we have made some progress with Cox Ferry Road. I think they did transition and turn the new lights on last night, I believe. I don't know if they're active yet, but they had to switch over all the power heads and everything. So that DOT pattern that's coming up to help alleviate some of our congestion issues, turning issues. It's not going to fix it completely, but it's going to hopefully at least make it better. Question? Yes, sir.
Not questions, but comments. Something
Okay.
I want to add.
Sure.
I want to discuss, but it's related to you when it comes to my time to talk.
Mhm.
Two things, three things, right? Sugar Hill area,
Mhm.
Thompson Street,
Right.
Ridge Street, Hill Street, 6th Avenue. They've been complaining about a lot of drug trafficking in that area as well as speeding, especially on Thompson Street. That's right off of Race Path going into the Sugar Hill area. But they asked for speed bumps. I say you can forget speed bumps. But I don't know whether that was the right answer or not, but just at least to patrol the area a little more there. And then the other two items is related to closing streets. And one is Curry Street, that's off of 5th and Race Path, that little alley there. And the other is McCray Alley. That one is already closed. But we have this cement barricade there.
Like a Jersey, but
Could we
Jersey
put,
barrier.
could it be something a little more, can I say, attractive, yes.
Aesthetically pleasing.
Please, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, well, look, so,
We can
you can't
investigate
come
that.
this
We
way.
can look and see if there's any type of pipe type barriers, as long as they're just not movable.
Right, correct.
That would be our biggest concern. And on Curry Street, you're talking about the dirt road
Correct.
section, the unimproved section between Race Path and Fifth.
Right.
I would be a favor. Matter of fact, I saw Reggie Jenner as he came in, and he said that they do not take any city apparatus down that street at all, so it's not used for any city traffic. So I don't have, and it's a bad street.
Except for
anyway,
illegal
because it's not
traffic.
Kept up.
Yes.
So, yeah, and again, that might be the best one to start with. If you think about maybe some of the things that we have at some of our greenways, the pipes that slide in, even down at the Riverfront Park,
Right.
they have maybe some of the big stanchion type pipes that slide in. That could be a solution.
We need them to be like at the White House where they sink
Go
for
down
a car to
there.
come in and then they come back up.
Yeah.
I saw that happen. It was just like watching a,
We're going to need a budget amendment for that.
I know, I can imagine.
Yeah,
I
those,
can
those top
imagine.
balusters are very expensive, but the top balusters that we have down at the Riverfront Park are by design, that they can be taken out when we have like Riverfest,
Right.
so that we can get bigger traffic going in and out. But for the rest of the year,
There-
it is that stop traffic from going in. So
Right.
that could be something that could go in, so that if we had to get in, if somebody changed property use,
Yeah.
and it became more feasible that, listen, we need to reconsider, that would be a good solution. As far as Thompson Street, we have 4 new cameras that just got delivered to us last Thursday. We already have work orders in with Santee Cooper to place them. So yes,
Okay.
Yes.
there's already a couple places there that are earmarked for having those cameras deployed so that we can start trying to gather some intelligence. We haven't had the speeding complaints on Thompson. We have had them on Ridge, and we ran the covert speed collector there. And I think the posted speed is either 25 or 30, and it was 2 or 3 miles an hour under the speed limit was the average speed. So probably not so much of a speeding issue. but
Sometimes it's
there's
perception.
all it takes is one, if you see one get by
Yeah.
really fast, you think
That's
everybody's fast. But
And-
we can obviously increase and improve our presence there.
And my last question is on the coast. Does Coastal patrol the apartments on 544 also, or is that your job?
Okay,
County.
they handle everything that is considered on campus.
Mhm.
All of their campus housing is contiguous with campus except for University Place, which is on Jackson Bluff. That is university housing, but it is not on campus.
Right.
So they patrol it. They have their security. They have their guard stations where you have to come in. When we have calls at the other multifamily housing on 544, they assist, but they are never the lead.
Right.
So we're always taking those calls, and it is a mix of people who live there. They can't market it as off-campus
Right.
or related to being campus housing because for whatever type of rules there are, it has to be available to anybody who wants to rent there. So there are many, many people there. Matter of fact, that's where we got almost the 10 pounds of marijuana from and a stolen gun. And I think we arrested 3 people there, and none of them were students. But they were all young enough to be students, but they were not students.
And that's what made me ask that question, because I feel so afraid for the kids that are coming to college and have to live in apartments like that, and then they don't know who else is there. I would hate for my child or anybody's child really,
Agreed.
to have to live in a facility where they're not protected
Yeah.
or
And-
the school has no charge of.
Agree. And even worse is that some of these, because they have the rooms, like 4 different rooms,
Right.
they have people living in rooms that they do not know before they get here.
Yeah.
It's like, the facility rents you a room, somebody else a room from X state, somebody from whatever city a room, and you don't even know each other.
And they might not be college kids either.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Can I piggyback on Mr. White's point there? You've heard me say this before. I've said it several times. While we're still not up to our full staffing, I would always be in favor of contracting with CCU police I know they assist us, but what I don't want to have happen is, all of our team is over there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then something's going down at Larry's house or your house or my house. And a big segment of of our community is uncovered. And so I will say it again. I will always say it. They've got tremendous resources, and I will always be in favor of, we're not giving up our territory. We're just allowing someone who has lots of resources to step in. The Oury County does it for Ainer.
Yeah.
The Ainer police doesn't work after 8 o'clock. That goes to Oury County.
That's right.
So I just know that, where I stand.
Well, I would
If they
always be
can-
hopeful that some of that housing would be bought by the housing foundation. I would always be very hopeful to do that because then it takes it into the university system, but
Right.
I don't know if that'll ever happen or not, but we can always hope for some of it. But we have a tremendous working relationship with them. But again, they do not take the lead on those calls unless we're not anywhere close because of things that are happening on this side of the river. And we ask them, and they will respond first if we ask. But in general, they do not. And even when they respond first, all they're going to do is hold the scene until we get there.
Well, just understand, all I'm saying is if we get to a point where we need to use some of our resources to contract with them
Okay.
because we're spread too thin, I'm in favor of it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Chief, I just wanted to give you a special thank you, and I almost asked Mr. Cooper to wait so that I could say the same to him. Had a conversation with Mr. Emmerich about our current reporting system. They sort of probably were established in the late 70s or early 80s because they remind me so much of my early governmental work. There were requirements that you report what you did all month. And they were a series of numbers and oddball kind of facts that really didn't tell you much of anything. I remember working for an agency and there was a monthly report requirement. And I literally spent one of those work days, 8 hours, fabricating what I did 30 days prior and moving down to the current day. Fabricating not because I needed to lie, but because I had no memory of what I did 30 days before. I just think that to benefit this council, what we need more of. And I appreciate you're having our first exposure, our real reports. What is going on? What's going on with your employees?
Okay.
What do you see as issues that we need to just sort of brace ourselves for? Even sort of an emotional side, if anybody feels like they can get a little deeper into what the reality is that they deal with every day. I would have read Robert's report, but probably not known still that Jim Hill has some serious health issues, if I can say it aloud in a meeting. But at any rate, now I can reach out to him. But the larger we get, I don't want us to not be a family. I want us to continue to kind of get an inside view of what's going on so that we can be supportive to the department, so that we can help them to get what they need, so that we can appropriately respond to the growth and all those wonderful things that are happening around us as well. And what the two of you brought here tonight is exactly kind of what I was thinking about. So I thank you so much. And I hope the council will agree that it's real important that we sort of get the inside scoop, as opposed to something that somebody designed 30, 40 years ago. Just doesn't tell me much of anything. You know, I like to know you get a lot of calls, but that doesn't tell me what's happening as a result of those calls. So thank you very much.
Well, I can certainly give you as much data as you want,
Yes.
anytime.
Right.
And
But this,
ad nauseum, and I would prefer not to do that as well. I also like the human side of it, and you just tell me how you want that to look, and we'll make sure we do that, because we have one officer out right now on FMLA with a new baby. Good stuff.
yeah,
We have an impending retirement coming up.
right.
So we do have some news that certainly when those days come for y'all to be involved in things, I'll make sure you're there. But you just tell me how you want it to look.
But you did
Gladly.
exactly what I want. So thank you very much.
Okay.
I really appreciate that.
All right.
May I ask Mr. Emmerich a question? Something just came to mind. What happened to our newsletter?
Girl, I wrote that down.
That was such a really good tool. Okay, because we've done it before, you know, many times since I've been
I
involved in the
believe
city.
we've
We'll-
just resumed it.
We'll get it going for 18 months and it'll quit. And 2 years later, we'll try it again. I don't know that anybody knows how valuable I think that is.
COVID is what got rid of the newsletter, because we didn't have the staffing to be able to put it all together.
Yeah, but it was before COVID that we stopped getting them.
Maybe we didn't just get them to you very well.
Okay. Yeah, somebody tell me when, yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
Anyway, it's just a good tool
I just.
and
wrote
we
that down.
appreciate it. Is that the end of your report, Mr. Emmerich? Thank you so much. I'm almost certain I started on this end last time. I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
because I think I did. Am I wrong? Josh, did I start with you? Mr. Gold,
I have no issue.
well, let's just go to Mr. Goldfish. Let's try to do it fairly.
Save the best for last.
That's right.
I
Absolutely.
thought we started down here. I hadn't even thought about what I wanted to carry on about, but I got a few things. I brought up last meeting that about the possibility of just at least having an open discussion about campaign signs and moving back to 30 days. It's not so much a big a deal in a national election. You don't see as many, but it seems like during municipal elections, they're everywhere. Would love to have that discussion with all of you. I had something else. Yeah, many of y'all know Michael Thompson. Michael's daddy's Danner Thompson. And Michael, of course, does a lot out here at the rec center. A year older than me and is really struggling with COVID right now. And it sounds as though he may have taken a turn for the better, but pneumonia in both lungs and hospitalized and just really sick. So let's remember him. And he's done a lot, as has that entire family out here at the rec center. But anyway, I think that's all I've got right now.
Thank you for letting us know that. Thank you, Mr. Goldfinch. Ms. Timms.
Well, I do think that we all could see a difference in what's going on in the city now and what was going on a month or two ago. I think things are beginning to pick up. Traffic shows it, but other things too. Churches are getting back a little bit more to in-house worship, and I think the schools are still struggling, and they may be for quite some time. I don't know how they're going to manage their problems. We think we've got problems, but they've got more, I believe. But I again want to thank the citizens of Conway for taking care of each other, I think is the way I might phrase it. And I do think that we've done better than a lot of places have. And I think it's a credit to those people that have put effort into doing the right thing. And that's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. White?
You just stole my last bit of thunder with
I'm
the
so
city newsletter.
sorry.
But we thank you all for everything you're doing. And just a little reminder that we are in this article about the downtown revitalization. Have a picture of our train in there talking about what we're doing and so forth. So that's all.
Thanks, sir. And us thinking of the same thing just gives more power to it.
That's right.
All right, sir. Mr.
Proud to the
Jordan?
people.
So just a couple of things. After the announcement of the Dr. Screams and what they were doing, planning to do downtown and, spreading that into Christmas, lots of positive feedback on that. I think the community is really looking forward to that. It's gonna be interesting to see how that process works during our current times, but I think a lot of people are really looking forward to that. Also obviously with last Thursday with our large amount of rain in a very short time, our staff did an incredible job getting out, taking care of things. I had sidewalk just down the street that was about to wash out. A quick text to Adam, in just a few minutes, a crew was there to block that sidewalk off so that we didn't have any issues from there. And then to piggyback off of Adam, congrats to Coastal. They got paid a nice check to go to Kansas and beat them for a second year in a row. So kudos to them. And maybe Kansas comes to Conway next year. We'll trifecta and do it again. So and that's all I've got for you tonight.
Awesome. I have the benefit of living in a community that has a new drainage system, and despite the overall flooding in Conway, we had none. So we were spared, and that has to do with the direction of Kevin Chestnut, who I will also say that we should pray for. Wish him well. Our administrator's contract ends at the end of the calendar year. Is that right, Mr. Emmerich?
December 7th.
Oh, earlier, December 7th. So at the next meeting, I believe that we should, if we would set aside some time for an executive session, please, so that we can discuss that contract and make sure that it continues. Look at how June's looking at me. Let me say that again. We want to make certain that that contract continues. All right, so just wanted to, I've been meaning to say that for last couple of meetings and somehow did not. We are anxious to see, I think at last meeting you said you'd bring us some designs of medallions for this meeting, but when you can, please.
I have one,
I'd
but
like
it's
to-
not where I want it to be.
Okay, all right, very good. And thank you, Adam, for your adjustment. For your having this new report. I don't know whether it takes an action of council or whether it's by your doing that we can relieve the duty of those cumbersome, meaningless kinds of, and I say that's just the way I see them. I don't mean that nobody gets anything out of the reports. I just believe that if we had at every meeting, 2 department heads come up and just speak from their heart with a few notes if necessary, but talk to us about where they are, where they're going, their goals, their fears, their needs, just some real practical kinds of information. I would be satisfied and I would happily relieve them of that cumbersome duty.
The obligation to do an administrator's report is by ordinance, and we can amend that, or we could just modify what is required to be in that report.
So it does it say that there should be a report from each individual department?
No, it just says an administrator's report on the activities of the city.
Well, I'd be interested to know what the rest of the council thinks of it, but I do believe that unless there is some great desire, to know that the phone rang 416 times today, that we could do better and it would be less taxing on the backs of our department heads. I believe that would be the case. And that concludes my comments for today. I believe that we are now about to go into executive session to discuss negotiations incident to a proposed purchase of downtown property pursuant to section 3470A2, South Carolina law, section 3470A2. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Mr. Goldfinch.
Mayor, I move that we move into executive session after a 5-minute break.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jordan.
I will second Mr. Goldfinch.
Thank you, sir. We have a properly seconded motion that after a brief intermission that we enter into an executive session. All in favor, show of hands, please. And motion carries unanimously. Stretch, take care of your needs, and pick it up.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to go, though. I went somewhere else.
We are now reconvened from our executive session. And I believe that the floor is now open for a motion relative to the discussion that was had. Mr. Goldfinch.
Mayor, I move forward with, I move that we authorize staff to move forward with the purchase of said property during the executive session.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Ms. Timms? We have I'm sorry, Mr. Jordan. I don't know whose hand was first.
You good?
We have a properly seconded motion to approve the purchase of the property that was discussed in executive session. Is there any further discussion? There being none, all in favor with a show of hands, please. And that motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion then to adjourn? Mr. Jordan,
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Mr. White,
Second.
we have a properly seconded motion to adjourn. All in favor with a show of hands. Again, unanimous decision. Good night. It's been a pleasure.
After you talk tomorrow.
I'll be glad to.